Hello and welcome to another episode of the Freelance Monocle. In this episode, we have the privilege of talking with Wesley Slover and catching up with him again since our last chat on the podcast. For those who aren't familiar with him yet, Wesley is a sound and music designer and is very well known for his work in the motion design industry, among other industries. He actually created the music for this podcast. We chat with him to learn about his process within design and video work and how he slots into the flow of each project. He touches on the importance of collaboration and how being mindful has benefited in the process. And he also sprinkles in some thoughts on AI and how it's been finding its way into the industry. This was another great chat, so let's go check it out. Wesley, hey man, how's it going?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, good to have you on again. I know we had you on previously, and it's good to catch up again. So thanks for coming back on.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So just to kick off the conversation, can you introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yeah, I'm Wesley Slover. I run a small sound and music design studio called Sanctus Audio. And what I do there is mostly music composition and like kind of creative direction, that kind of thing for our projects.
Gotcha. Awesome. Yeah, and I'm sure many of us in this industry are very familiar with your work. You seem to be, very popular in our industry. But just a quick question though, because before, I'm not sure if people would know this, but I know you previously named as Sanctus, and it changed to Sanctus. So just curious what inspired that change.
Yeah, in part because we had a lot of clients calling us Sonos, like the speaker company.
Oh, okay.
And that's kind of never great as a brand if you're getting confused with another brand. And it's just like a mouthful, like sacred sound, and we just changed it to just sacred. And then sanctus.audio was our URL, so it kind of made sense to just simplify it a little bit that way.
Okay.
I don't know. It's like, yeah, I guess the other problem is, when you tell someone your name, if they can't like instantly remember it or pick it up, it's probably not doing the job that it's supposed to do.
Yeah, I can see that. I know Sanctus is a little bit more concise, but I always knew you as Sanctus. So it's good to know.
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. So just kind of to roll back, you obviously, you do some great work for those who aren't familiar with your work, but how did you initially get into the music space?
Yeah, so, I grew up as like a huge band geek, played trumpet, and when I was like a teenager, picked up the guitar, and really just kind of played music everywhere I could. Went to school an hour early to play in jazz band, I'd play in the pit orchestra and all this, and just loved all kinds of music. But I think what I realized when I started playing around with recording, that while I liked performing music, that I really liked making stuff, rather than like learning a piece of music and executing it or, improvising, playing something live. I like the process of like building something from nothing, and having like a recording or something to show from that. So I decided professionally, like after school, I was like, well, I want to do something with music, but I don't want to be a performer. I don't think I have what it takes, the desire to be like a trumpet performer and like performing and teaching and all of the things that kind of come with that career. So I went to school for audio engineering because I thought, hey, that feels like a real job. It's one thing to play music, another to be like, the person who's like kind of, moving knobs and dials and like making sure things sound nice, but it's a little more behind the scenes, it felt more realistic to me. Yeah, so I went to a tech school for that and just kind of like immediately realized that, that's actually a really tough way to make a living. This was like 2005, like kind of in the fallout of like Napster and all that in the music industry. So all of a sudden there weren't like these huge budgets for making records like there were, in the 90s and stuff before. But through that, I discovered that like, oh, I just like sound. Like sound is cool. It doesn't have to be music. Like in school, we started doing like Foley for projects, learning about post-production audio. And I was kind of exploring with synthesizers and stuff and just realized like, oh, there's like this whole other expression that's not music, but it's kind of similar. It's building on those same skills. It's the same sense, hearing. From there, I came out of school going like, all right, I'm going to do video game audio. And I just like could not get my foot in the door anywhere. I did a great internship, but couldn't really get my foot in the door anywhere. So I was just, for a long time, doing kind of every kind of project that I could, whether it's like a friend's B movie or recording a friend's band or making my own music or, doing live sound. And I was working at a church at the time too, where we also did a lot of stuff. We did, the church services, we had a radio broadcast, they had some video needs. So kind of was doing everything looking for like, well, where can I go, in this career? And maybe I'm getting ahead of your question a little bit, but really kind of leading into like motion graphics, since that's like, what we're, your audience is like a friend who directed commercial films introduced me to a motion designer named Jordan Scott. And he said, hey, my friend Jordan is working on this video for his wife's baking blog. Like, you should do sound effects for it. Like, that'd be cool. It's like, there's probably not a budget or anything, but just like give it a shot. And that was kind of this moment where like, I feel like if I was going to point to a place where my career kind of clicked into place, it was that project, because it was like, oh, I didn't know this was a thing. I didn't know there's like all these people animating stuff that's not like a Pixar movie or, Saturday morning cartoons. And then I also like realized like, oh, it's great because it's short. You can finish, you finish a piece in a reasonable amount of time. And it's interesting to do sound and music for, because there's kind of like not so much a right way to do it. There's a lot of like freedom and flexibility in kind of the abstract nature of a lot of motion graphics. So that was like really the project where I feel like kind of like found myself in terms of my career. It's like I had all this various experience, and then it kind of like focused in on, how can I collaborate with motion designers and kind of become like, kind of going back to what I said earlier about, I liked making stuff. And it's like, okay, this is like a community of people making stuff. And like, I can't animate, I can't draw, I don't know how to do graphic design, but like, I know how to make sounds, I know how to manage these things. So like, I can kind of participate in that way.
Nice. Awesome, man. Okay. That's great to know. Yeah. So, I mean, that's like how you kind of got into the industry and where you kind of got your first break after school and stuff. So that's great to know. And the thing is, so I was curious because I know we all know you from the motion design industry, but you've worked with other industries and other clients. So, I mean, can you kind of elaborate on, what other kind of work besides motion design do you do?
Yeah, I feel like honestly, we've probably worked on just about everything that can make sound to some degree. So right now we're just about to go into early access on an indie game that we've been working on for the last like year and a half. So we've done a little bit of video game work. It's going to be at Steam's Next Fest. There's going to be a demo out next month. So that'll be fun if people want to give it a shot. I'm fond of that game. We've worked on like UX. So like Loom, if you've ever used that, it's like a video recording app. So we did sound design for that app. We've done some sound design for Discord for some of their product features. We've worked on like a 3D printer, like a industrial 3D printer, making bleeps and bloops for that. We've done some live action, like we did live action film. Yeah, trying to think of kind of what else. Oh, like audio, radio, that kind of stuff as well. Yeah, I think we've found that we love to work on all kinds of stuff because it's really like, okay, well, here's a product or here's a project, here's something that it has some sort of goal. It's trying to accomplish something. It's like, okay, well, what can we do with sound and music to like help achieve that goal?
Right.
Kind of regardless of what it is.
Awesome, man. That's a crazy variety though, working on games and like movies and stuff like that, or live action stuff. So, man, okay. So I guess I was just curious. So I think we're all familiar with the process of motion design. Typically, you have your kickoff, your concept, your exploration, and the timelines obviously differ. But as far as, a project for music and audio, what is like a typical process for that look like? And what's kind of like the general timelines for something like that?
Yeah, our role is a lot faster than the animation process. And so ideally for us, we get involved. We're like involved throughout the whole project, but we kind of come in and out when you need us. So ideally we are in pre-production talks where we can like give a realistic budget and kind of just help game plan. Like, okay, we know what this project is. Like, here's how we think we can help. And then from there, we'll kind of, maybe at the beginning, put music together and kind of figure out that basic music direction, since that's something that you can do when the piece is in like a more rough state. And then as animation starts coming together, we'll start doing like a sound design demo. We call it like a sound style frame, in the same way that you might make a style frame to show a client like, okay, when it's done, it's going to look like this. Don't freak out about play blasts and stuff. Like, it's going to be pretty. This is what this is what we, and just having that conversation of like, okay, are we sure this is what we want it to look like? We want to make those decisions, lay the groundwork. So we do that with sound, so that instead of doing a kind of a rough pass of sound over all the rough stuff, we can do something that's really polished and take time to go back and forth while animation is still going so that we're not like adding time to the schedule because we can kind of do that in tandem. And then, oftentimes it's like those last few days of the project we're really involved of like putting all the pieces together, as like the film is coming together.
So then I guess a timeline for you isn't set because you're kind of coming in and out of the project as the production's going for a piece.
Yeah, exactly. And we've really set up our company for that. It's one of the nice things about being remote is that we're not booking like studio sessions where like the agency's coming in to the studio and that those are like hard, times. So it makes us a lot more flexible to be able to both be really involved, but, only be there when you really need us.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. So that's a lot of planning and scheduling and calendars, I would imagine, for you.
Yeah, except maybe I shouldn't say this, but we kind of ignore the calendars. And the only reason I say that is that, I don't know, 3/4 of the time they change.
Oh.
And if, because you think about like most of our work is at the end of the project, right? So if anywhere during the course of production, the schedule moves by like a day or two, well, like that moved like our entire schedule of the project.
Okay.
So like say you push back 2 days, it's like, well, we were only doing 2 days of work. Now our entire, work has shifted.
Right.
And we're keeping it in mind. We're keeping tabs. We're checking in and stuff. But we really set ourselves up with just realistically knowing like there's a lot of uncertainty in producing for a client. You can make a great schedule, but like you don't know if the client is going to like it. You don't know, all these different things. So it both is and it isn't, I guess. There's a lot of calendars and scheduling.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, this makes sense because it seems like it has to be much more fluid. But I think we're all familiar with a project where sometimes the production gets postponed or feedback comes late. So we kind of have to be, fluid and flexible with that. So that's okay. That's good to know. So then, okay.
Yeah.
So then for this, communication is key, just like any project. But as far as collaboration and communicating with the client and collaborating, with your client on these projects, what does that look like from an audio perspective? Because I know from a design perspective, it's a lot of communication there, but for audio, what does collaboration look like for your projects?
Yeah, we mostly communicate like through email or through calls. I guess kind of the most basic, there's the things that you would just like communicate about of like, you're saying like figuring out schedule, figuring out the creative direction and these kinds of things. And then I'd say like, we try to show as much as we can because it's one thing to write in an email of like, we're going to make it sound like happy and abstract or whatever it is. But it's another to be like, here's a sample of that, or I'm explaining this. Here's an example that you can listen to that shows you what I mean. Or if I have a question about like, I don't know, something in the picture that might change or I don't know, something where I'm trying to ask a question for clarity, I will try to like mock up my question into like tangible examples of like, okay, do you want us to do this or do you want us to do that? And really just looking for like as many opportunities to like make it easier for the producer because I know that they're juggling a lot of things. And so I want to make it as easy as possible, either for them to answer my question or for them to go to their creative director and not have to like try to interpret what I'm asking for, but to just show them this thing and, that they can like answer it easily and with clarity. Sorry, that's not like a specific example. I guess it's a hard one though, because, communication takes all these different forms, on a project.
Right. Well, I guess I was curious because I would imagine for sound, you probably would, I'm picturing this, but maybe I would think you would have a client come into either like a sound studio or something to review. But how does that work virtually? Like, what do you do for that? Like, what kind of presentation tools?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, like, just something like Replay or Frame.io is great. Just to, here's a video, like, give us your notes, give us your thoughts on it. That's typically what we do if we're asynchronously. And then we kind of have our own. So sometimes clients will ask for like a real-time session, like they want to do it over Zoom or something like that. And there's tools for that. And we've explored it a lot, but we've found that our best result is to do basically just block out a chunk of time. So if the client wants to be involved in that way, we'll say, okay, let's take, 2 hours or 3 hours, depending on, how complicated this piece is. We're going to share the whole thing with you ahead of time. You give us notes and let's have a phone call, and then we'll go away for a little bit. We'll work on that, and then we'll post it for you again, and we'll have another phone call, or you can leave us notes, and we just kind of go back and forth that way. really just it's sort of like what we were, what we would do asynchronously through email, but just going like, hey, you have our time, we're here, we can talk as much as we want on the phone. But then it kind of avoids like all the weirdness of like when you're reviewing stuff like that online, if there's a little glitch in playback, or maybe somebody's not because it's hard to focus during that at the level you need to when you're sitting in front of your laptop or whatever it is. And it's like you might be getting, on the client side, you might be getting emails or all kinds of other stuff. And so if we just sort of say like, hey, we're going to come in and out and make you only have to focus for like these short periods of time, I think it helps the client too, to really like be in the right headspace.
Gotcha. Awesome. And Replay, just to let people know about what it is that the Dropbox tool?
Yeah, that's Dropboxes. Our company, we use Dropbox for everything, and so it's pretty easy for us to just use Replay.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, haven't really used it myself, but I recognize the name, so that's good to know.
It does have a cool feature. I'm sure Frame.io does this now, where you can do like a live review, where you multiple people can log into the browser, and like I think it's like anybody who plays everybody everyone has control over the transport. Okay. So I hit play, and it is not streaming video to them. It's like actually hitting play in their browser as well.
Okay.
Which is kind of cool, but it's still just like janky enough that we kind of just like to avoid it.
Gotcha. Okay, that's good to know. Well, speaking of collaboration, though, you have another form of collaboration that you do, a project called the Collab Collection.
Yeah.
Which is awesome. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so that's my podcast. I kind of to back up, like I love podcasting. I love the audio format. I grew up on like This American Life and Radio Lab and all that stuff, and was looking for a project to pursue, and kind of settled on this realization that I had been going through in my own career of like kind of everything is built on collaboration. Everything is built on like how well, our company is built on how well can we collaborate with the clients that we're working with? How well can we communicate creatively with a creative director, all these kinds of things. And kind of came to the realization that, there's all these great tools for technical skills out there. You go on YouTube, you can find great tutorials on how to use this tool or that tool or this technique. But I didn't see as much of that for like, well, how do you work well with other people? And it is something that's, the more that I like thought about it, it was more and more interesting because I realized that it's just like kind of infinitely complicated. Because depending on what it is you're collaborating on, who it is that's collaborating, there's all these different ways that you can work together. There's all these different techniques for that. Even in our projects, it's like, when you ask me like how we collaborate with somebody, it's hard for me to give an answer because it really depends on who we're collaborating with and what we're doing for them. And like, what's the timeline like? And what are like all the, the pressures that people are facing? What are the incentives of everybody on the team and all these kinds of things. So the Collab Collection is really my exploration of that. I reach out to different creative people and they, tell me about instances of collaboration or advice. And kind of our goal is to like tell stories about people collaborating and share useful insights so that you can apply that to your own work. And it's through all kinds of creativity. So we do have like a fair amount of episodes with people in our industry because that's just, a lot of the people that we're connected with. And I think so much great collaboration happens like with motion design and these kinds of things. But, we had an episode about a mural painter and their struggles of dealing with, so they were invited to paint this mural in this apartment or this condo building. And it's like, great, cool. I'm going to make this, going to do like an environmental piece, and like what a great thing to talk about like how beautiful Michigan is, and like it's kind of there's a conservation success story we're painting on there, and this like call to action, and it's like, wow, everyone's going to feel great about that. But the condo ownership changed hands, and it became this like years long struggle of like getting the stuff approved and then being able to use the parking lot that it was attached to, and ultimately what they did was they actually brought in some like nature like nonprofit organizations, and it kind of became this whole festival and now it's like a whole nonprofit where they partner with various like ecologists and artists to make artwork inspired by nature and ecology. And that's just kind of one of these stories. This was a mural that I pass all the time on my running route. I didn't know there was a story there. I just thought, oh, this is nice. this is just going to be like a nice feel good, like, yay, we should like all just work together story. But it actually got into a lot of like, wow, like, yeah, a lot of these things are hard, but like, they're also like really cool stuff can come out of it. And so it sounds like one example of like, one of our episodes.
Awesome. Okay. So then from those conversations on your podcast, I mean, what's kind of something, the biggest takeaway that you've learned from all these conversations?
So one is definitely like, just like communication, understanding where somebody else is coming from, because it's one thing to communicate clearly, but it's like another to like really like empathetically understand what it is, what your client understands, what your collaborative partner understands, but also like, what does this look like from their shoes? What does this because it's one thing for me as a composer to go, I need to make the best music for this thing. And that's what's the most important. But it's like, actually, no, like the people that I'm working for, they have all these other pressures, and maybe having like the best piece of music isn't the most important thing, but the most important thing is that they have like meaningful options that they can like present to their boss, or I don't know, those kinds of things. And I think like communication on that kind of like deeper level of really understanding is so important. And then I think just like being like encouraging and uplifting and create like trust. That's really what it is like having like trust that everybody is like doing their best, and that people aren't going to be upset with you if you make a mistake or whatever, that like there's like a sense of encouragement. It doesn't mean it has to be like, oh, you're doing such a great job. Like, this is so lovely, like we need like criticism, but like, because once you have like that kind of trust and like kindness, then like you can dig into that criticism and it's not like a hindrance. It's like, it's kind of, it unlocks a lot of potential for collaboration because everybody feels comfortable in it. If that makes sense.
Dude, that's huge. That's such a great insight into that, because honestly, that's something that I'm kind of realizing over time, because it seems like in our industry, I mean, almost any industry, designers, we deal with marketing teams because we're creating assets to market a product. But the thing is, a lot of times we see it as this tumultuous relationship, almost like, the marketing people are our enemy. But like you said, if you see it from their perspective, they have objectives and goals. And I think if we kind of step back and say, hey, let's just be helpful to them. I know they might seem tense, but it's because they're having pressures from these forces, or, these people in the marketing, because they have to hit these numbers. So I think you're right. If we have this kind of perspective, like, hey, they got their challenges, so let's make it easier for them. I think that's really great insight.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, that's awesome, man. So I definitely encourage people to check out your podcast. And if anything, I mean, me checking it out also really highlights and showcases what audio can really do, because I really love the format that you have and how the music changes. And it's really like, man, this crazy landscape and like roller coaster of just different tracks and music and how it can really change the mood. So yeah, I really encourage everyone to check that out.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I love that format. It's kind of that like NPR store narrative style.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that because I'm not really a very good talker. So it's a format where I can interview somebody and kind of like learn as much as I can from them, and then take that and cut it down to, really about like 10 minutes of sound bites, if that, and then script narration to kind of put it together. So it does sort of take some of the pressure off. It's like a bit of extra work, I guess, in the one sense, but
well, dude, that's a huge advantage.
You're brave for just, putting yourself out here.
Well, you got the advantage, man, to put music together like that and like have that sense. Definitely, dude, really like elevates the experience. So I commend you for that. So this kind of brings to mind this conversation about collaboration, relationships, and all that. I think it's huge, but I know something that's new that's, the topic of conversation these days is AI. And I'm just curious on your perspective of it, but I know right now a lot of people are uncertain. We don't know how it's going to affect our industry, but I think one of the reoccurring things that I keep hearing right now is that AI won't ever replace relationships and the human connection. But I guess I'm curious, what are your thoughts on this whole AI emergence?
I don't know, man. There's CEOs who are banking on that not being true. But I think the biggest impacts in terms of our work are AI tools, but not like mid-journey kind of generative tools. So it's definitely in like dialogue cleanup and like noise reduction and that kind of stuff. There's some incredible tools. It kind of be similar to, what is it like in Photoshop, where you can like kind of erase something and it would fill that. You know what I'm
Right.
talking about? Like magic eraser or something. I don't know. I
Right.
don't
Right.
do any of that stuff, but it's like it's this kind of things that have been around, but since before like ChatGPT was a big deal, like that kind of approach. So yeah, like dialogue cleanup. There's some tools that I really like that are like they'll generate like a chord progression or melody ideas, and it's not like here's a whole song, but it's just like here's this chord progression. And it's nice to be able, especially because in our work we have to like come up with a lot of ideas very quickly. Like right now I'm writing 20 pieces of music for like walk on music for an event in like a month. It's like hard to come up with like ideas. Otherwise, I kind of like be, rehashing a lot of the same stuff. So that tool is great because it's just kind of like, okay, like here's an idea, like a place to start with. I don't think it's really taken much of a bite out of our industry yet in terms of like, what's it called? Like Udio, I think is like the mid journey of music where it will like spit out you tell it, like I want to write a country song about robots, and then it'll like spit out a like super generic country song about robots. But it's hard for me to not imagine that those kind of tools are gonna like really start to eat away at like some of the cheaper like stock music websites that are like kind of already like by their nature sort of generic. Yeah, and like far as sound design, I think there is it's like similar to Sora, like that make just generates videos, but it will do sound design. But those really don't sound very good yet. I think it's kind of I don't know, it seems like with generative AI, like the more like layers it has to respond to, the less useful it is. So it's like one thing to like, okay, generate a video. And then it's another thing to go, okay, this is the video. Now make all the sounds for that specific video. It's kind of just like that, like divergent thinking of like when we're creative, right? That like it kind of adds every time you're building on something else, there's like complexity there because it has to like match it in certain ways. I imagine, that it'll get better, but at this point, it's like not really good enough. Yeah, I don't know. It's a hard thing. I have like a whole lot of thoughts and opinions on AI tools and whatnot, and ultimately, I'm just like very ambivalent because I have no idea, man. It's wild.
Yeah, I mean that's also another recurrent theme is honestly there's so much uncertainty. People are like, I don't know where this is gonna go, but I think I'm just kind of reflecting on the last time I thought, technology kind of affected or impacted an industry was, for instance, the first thing that comes to mind is like rotoscoping. Before that was a
Mm,
task and a career in itself, where you're a rotoscope artist, you're cutting out video for compositing. But it seems like now those tools have like really improved, and that can just be done with a simple plugin or simple tool. So I'm not sure if there's anything like that on your side that you've seen that where it's kind of evolving like that.
yeah, that's actually a really good example for what I mean about like like audio cleanup plugins that like you could spend time with all these different tools and kind of scrub something out, but these AI tools do it like even better than you could have done, even with like a lot of time and with a lot of tools. That I get really excited about that kind of stuff. Like it's awesome for my podcast, like, I interview people and not everyone has like, microphone setup and all that. And I've got really good results where I have someone record on their iPhone to an Apple like voice memo. And that doesn't sound very good, but when I run it through this plugin, it just improves it so much. And I don't know, it's kind of like in a way, it's like the technology is like removing a barrier of technology. And that's really exciting to me. But yeah, I have a whole lot of other opinions about the ethics, and it's certainly scary about, where our industry, where like literally every, knowledge work industry is gonna, what that's gonna look like.
I mean,
It's
are
yeah.
you seeing anything that AI might affect certain roles or job positions for audio? Like, because for instance, like I know I myself have been seeing graphic design seem to be taking a big hit just because a
Mm.
lot of times people would approach me saying, "Hey, I have this new company, I need a logo." And I can't tell you, I think like 9 out of 10 people honestly just say, "Hey, I just whipped up something in Midjourney." And it's like, whoa, well, there goes that work. So I don't know if there's
Yeah.
anything on your side you're seeing.
Not that I'm like have like come across or like could say firsthand, but I have to think like it's really going to be a lot of the like more entry level positions that are going to get kind of gobbled up. And that's sort of scary of just like, well, okay, well, where do you start a career at that point,
Right.
And
Yeah.
then how do you learn all the stuff if like the AI is doing it instead?
Yeah.
Um,
Gotcha. Well, I think that was probably an issue or a challenge for people before, but
Yeah, I think like you said, we don't know, but I think it's just making things efficient, which is exciting, but uncertain on the other hand. So yeah, I think we're all in this roller coaster together.
Yeah, for sure.
Gotcha. So then, I mean, for you and your company, I mean, what are some of the goals that you have and ambitions you have for the company?
Yeah, it's funny, like for the longest time I keep feeling like, oh, we should have like a very, specific goal, like go for this, position ourselves this very specific way or like pursue this really specific thing. But I don't know, over time, like really since the beginning, I've realized that we've had the most success by really just kind of following the opportunities that present themselves and following just like kind of a creative curiosity. So not necessarily opportunities that present themselves, but just like, I don't know, what do I feel inspired to do? Like right now, I'm gotten interested in like orchestral composition. I don't really have a background in like, big orchestra stuff. And so I just did a piece that's like an epic fantasy orchestra. And that's just been, I don't know, it's been really fun. And so I feel like the combination of those two things of like on my own kind of exploring things, and then that sort of prepares me for when an opportunity pops up to like pursue that. So really like our goal is just to keep working with more people that are doing cool work and that we like to work with. And yeah, find anything that's kind of new or different that we haven't done before, which is, incredibly vague answer for you. But I don't know. I find like that's where I've really gotten the most satisfaction out of my work. But, I guess, more tangible goals. It's like, making the podcast and getting that out to more people and, finding a podcast that like really connects with people is definitely a goal of mine. But yeah, nothing like really terribly specific.
Nice. Yeah, that's great. I can definitely relate with that because I think throughout my career too, I think that's kind of another repeating theme is that, some people have goals to work for certain companies, but I think in my experience, it's always the people that make the experience great. It's not really so much about the product or the company you're working with. It's the people that you're working with. So that's great to hear you kind of say that too. I guess I was just curious on your side if you were interested in pursuing something specific. That's awesome to hear that you're curious about orchestral stuff because that seems to be like a monumental task. But it's interesting because I think some of the artists that I followed, it's interesting to see their and career trajectory. For instance, I'm not sure if you're familiar with a group called Hybrid.
No.
They're a UK group, and I used to DJ back in the day, and they were more so like intelligent breakbeat, but then they got more into like scoring and orchestral stuff for movies. Also, another group right behind me, I don't know if you can tell, these guys, Daft Punk.
Oh, yeah. little known artist.
But dude, it's crazy for them to see how they've kind of evolved the music that they were known for, like French house in the beginning, and then they've just, holy crap, evolved into something. So yeah, I was just curious, like what kind of curiosities you had to pursue.
Yeah, I mean, I think actually it's really similar to that. Is like I know that I'm never going to be like, a great like John Williams style composer. That's just not like, I mean, even that style. I don't have the education. I don't have like the discipline and the practice of that. But I do have all this other experience as in sound design and electronic music and that kind of stuff. And so it's fun. Kind of every time you learn this new thing, it sort of adds it to your toolbox. I imagine it's very much that way with motion graphics, learning a new, rendering or whatever it is. That's fun. I mean, it's like the really fun thing about our career that we have an excuse to kind of like, almost like required to keep learning and keep exploring things.
Yeah, for sure. Well, dude, it's really cool to see, the stuff that you're involved with, the things that you're pursuing. I'll be sure to link everything in the notes, but I mean, where can people find you or get in touch with you?
Yeah, so we are at sanctus.audio online. That's our URL. And you can find me on LinkedIn. That's really the only social media that I'm really active on. But happy to chat with anybody. And we are sanctus.audio on Instagram too. We post a little bit on there, but not a ton.
Nice. Awesome. Okay. Well, we'll be sure to link that in the show notes. But dude, this has been awesome, man. Super great conversation. So really appreciate you having on again. And really curious to see the stuff that you're going to be involved with. And again, encourage everyone to check out your podcast because it's really awesome. But dude, thanks again so much for chatting today and really appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks, Christian.
Thanks again to Wesley for joining us on another episode. I think he made some really great points on the importance of collaboration and being mindful of our clients and the people we work with. This chat is just another reinforcement of the message that we always heard from Joey at School of Motion, which basically conveys that trust almost always trumps talent. So I may be butchering that, but you know what I mean. If you're a good human and you're reliable, then that'll serve you really well. Wesley also mentions how AI has slowly been trickling into the industry of audio, but it's mostly being impacted tedious and entry-level tasks, but it's a good thing to be aware of and keep us informed on how to adapt. You can find Wesley and his great work on his website and socials, which I'll link in the show notes. But thank you again, and we'll see you in the next chat.